Yeah, this text you've sent me. Job number 640C to be confirmed. Does that mean you're confirming job number 640C to be, or that job number 640C is still awaiting process, in spite of the fact that I noticed that my cheque for the deposit cleared 11 days ago?
Welcome to episode 34 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where our cheques have been cleared and our invoices have been settled.
Yep, ready to wrap things up once and for all.
Indeed, the last review episode of this podcast. But we'll have a wrap-up episode next week, I think.
Yeah, a wee finale to go over some odds and ends.
So, we shall treat this episode as usual.
On its own merits.
Indeed.
Who uses cheques nowadays?
No one. Not in... When was this? 2016? Yeah. Cheques. Don't think so.
Not even lawyers were using cheques still in 2016, I don't think.
No. The only people using cheques are those who don't have the funds available.
Yes.
I still deal with a few people who try to pay by cheque.
Yes, hold this for 5 days.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
I'm okay. We've not recorded for about 3 weeks.
And people won't notice because it's a regularly scheduled release. But yeah, I've been away on holiday.
Mm-hmm. Where were you?
Berlin.
Any good?
I really enjoyed it. Yes, I recommend it to other people.
Good. That's you done your bit for the German Tourist Board.
That's me.
Did you eat any of those German sausages?
I did. I had a couple of currywurst.
Good.
It's a local specialty.
So I believe. But yeah, it feels odd. I can't remember how to podcast. I can't remember what this episode's about.
Yeah, what's this big black thing next to my face?
I've made that joke before, Ian.
Oh, okay.
Another 90-minuter.
To push through.
Crack on, you might say.
Well, you're going to in a minute, I would imagine.
Somebody?
I do have one.
Crack on.
In Daemon's Roost, Jonathan and Polly are drawn to a mysterious old house with a dark past when threatened by a man once jailed on the basis of some typically robust lateral thinking, and are forced to leave their home. Suspicious deaths, both historic and recent, put Jonathan's skills to the test as he must reconsider an earlier case to help find the right path to a new solution. Can he solve this intricate puzzle, or will his past finally catch up with him?
A past that is expanded upon in this episode without any...
And changed at random.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
We will. This episode had a lot of mysteries.
At least 3.
5.
Okay. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
You've said, well, we'll come to them. Should we talk about them now? Or do you want to go through?
No, we'll come to them.
Turn?
We'll come to them when we come to them.
When we come to them.
We start this week, pre-credits, with a Hammer-style horror story introduced by a Vincent Price-esque actor named Nathan Clore as he voiceovers the trailer to a campy-looking The Brides of the Damned.
Yeah, it was a bit reminiscent of... Remember the one with the bathtub and the Joey in the...
Yes.
Rain.
Joey in the Rain.
What was it called?
The one with the bath. That could be... That would be a terrible title.
The one with the bathtub and Joey in the Rain.
Yeah. Descriptive, however.
What was it called?
The Grinning Man.
Yes, of course it was. I knew that all along.
What reminded you of that?
It's the same sort of opening. Okay, this is a fictional one, and that one's a flashback, but it's the same idea of this story from another time, but in the same location that ties into the new mystery.
Can you remember what the story was about, the movie?
This time?
Yeah.
It makes more sense to talk about this episode, I suppose. Yes, it was about Sir Jacob Surtees, I believe, a nobleman who lived in that house previously and tormented women by murdering their partners and then indulging in lechery, according to the movie. It had been made into a film by Nathan Clore. Nathan Clore. That was you giving me the Vincent Prices earlier.
It was.
Nathan Clore. I think the production company name came up. What was it? It was the same as the one that...
Great Portland Street.
Yeah. You probably know more about that than me.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah, okay. And anyway, so this Surtees was... he would capture women and have them witness their partners being flung almost impossibly from one side of the room to the other into a fiery pit.
Impossible indeed. We then have the credits. before we see Daemon's Roost itself, the exterior of a large house. Gothic looking.
Yeah, all the best
abode.
episodes are Gothic, aren't they?
Yeah. And we witness a couple who are driven up to this large, intimidating home to an ominous score. And we quickly cut to a piece of misdirection as an old man in a wheelchair is shaved.
Yes, by presumably a nurse of some
A
kind.
carer, yeah.
The taxi drops the couple off at the end of the drive because he doesn't want to go any closer to the creepy, creepy house.
Going back to the house itself and the introduction of this old man, we should say the carer is called Philippa.
Yes.
And the old man is indeed Nathan Clore. It reminded me a little bit of Ghost's Forge. We had the old man, what was his name, Ebenezer or something like that, looking out.
Yes, that was, and he was assumed to be the, I remember that.
So, with the taxi driver fingering his crucifix in his seat, he stops well short of the house and asks his passengers to walk the rest of the way, as he apparently is uncomfortable due to the fact that he's heard things about this place.
Yeah, I mean, to clarify a little bit what I said earlier, Clore made a movie based on a real life person in the 30s and then bought his old house, either before or after making the movie about what he'd been doing.
Yeah. And as they get out, they are watched from a tree by a man installing some CCTV around the place.
That rhymes. Yeah, the man who was getting shaved, Mr. Clore, watches them on this CCTV system, which, although it's still being installed, apparently works. We hear the woman who was in the car tell her husband, we should probably say this is Alison and Stephen Belkin.
They are.
She refers to having had 15 years of nightmares about this place since she last lived there.
Yeah, and we get a flashback to her childhood where she witnesses a dead woman. I think it's her mother.
Yeah, and 2 dead children.
Yes.
Her sisters, presumably.
Fairly grim. And she admits that her return to this place was never going to be easy.
Yeah, but her husband perhaps correctly points out that it's not the house's fault. It's just concrete. Nothing untoward is coming on account of the house.
But as he says this, he looks up and is hit on the head by a falling CCTV camera before the installer, who I think his name is Ryman.
Ryman, yes, like the stationery company.
Yep. He runs over and apologises and blames the dilapidated masonry, but that's not really an excuse. If you're installing it and the masonry isn't up to
Do
scratch,
it somewhere else.
yeah, you don't stick it up anyway. Hopefully that'll hold.
Yeah, no, that was inappropriate. That could have been quite a serious injury.
I would suggest that, yeah, you get hit in the head from that height.
Yeah.
Inside, as they wait to be seen, they look over a number of old posters of different movies directed by the owner, Nathan. And Stephen is caught uttering disparaging comments about him.
Yeah, no,
by
I
Philippa.
didn't understand this. So he says that every time Nathan Clore directed a film, it was a turkey shoot. What's that mean? Like, what's the...
Well, a turkey's a
as in it was a bad movie?
Yes.
Okay, I get it. So the plays in Turkey rather than on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, yeah. And as you said earlier, Clore is the man that we saw. He's living in the house and he is there.
Yes. So moving through to the lounge, Philippa informs them that the catatonic-looking Nathan Clore can barely move due to a recent aneurysm, but that he can still hear and see. So he knows what's going on around him.
Yes. But you can't do anything about it.
No.
So even if you make him unhappy, you can't really express that.
Yeah, I think that would be more frustrating than being totally away with it.
Yeah, no, I think so. And it's almost like she's giving them this warning, but what difference is it going to make? So if they say something that's really offensive to him, he can't do anything about it.
I don't think that's the point, that you can't, perhaps just to watch what you're saying. And at this, Alison approaches Clore, where we discover more about why she is there.
I always thought the only way I could deal with what happened was to put as much distance between the two of us as possible. But then I suppose you grow up, realise the futility of denial. And when I got your letter 2 weeks ago,
Your stepfather had so much he wanted to say to you. It was barely 3 days after he wrote that. It's beyond cruel, the way things have worked out.
The time has finally come for you to learn the truth.
Somewhere in this house, if we look hard enough, we'll get to unlock the past.
God help us to live with what we find.
There's definitely a look of confusion on Philippa's face when Alison refers to trying to find the truth within the house.
Yeah, so I think as the viewer, we're meant to wonder if perhaps she's behind something or knows more than she's letting on.
Absolutely.
We head over to the Creek House.
Their new house.
Is it?
Yes.
Definitely.
Clearly, it's a semi-detached house.
It's not a semi-detached.
It's a semi-detached house. You can see from the exterior shot.
Can you?
Yes, and previously they had a massive mansion.
Yeah, I know that, but a semi-detached house, we learn has got a massive shed round the back.
You see that as well.
It looks like part of a stable.
Yeah.
Most semis aren't built with that.
No, this one is.
In any case, Jonathan is on the phone to the Hasselhoff removal firm and seems to be having some hassle, as we heard at the top of the podcast.
We did.
In another room, Polly has a friend round.
Yeah, Nina.
Yes, who is making some sort of cartoon model before she mentions her friend, who was recently doing a job at Daemon's Roost.
Her other half was doing a job at the Demon's Roost, is what she says.
Was it? I thought she
partner.
said friend.
No, it's her partner.
Okay. And tells Polly about the strange goings-on. I think she suggests that Jonathan might be intrigued by it all.
But we immediately erase all character development that Polly's had over the last 4 episodes, and she cuts her off and as Jonathan enters the room.
Yes, she reverts to type, and we find out that they are downsizing with a view to decluttering their past, and that after 5 years, Jonathan has finally sold his windmill. I'm not sure, I don't know, I mean, there's not a lot of people in the market for a windmill.
No.
But there will be enough people.
But it doesn't mean he's been trying to sell it for 5 years. It could just be it's taken him 4.5 years to decide to sell it.
Because I think we had learned previously it was mortgage free, he owned it.
Yeah, his parents gave it to him. Or
Yeah.
maybe he waited for them to die or something so it actually belonged to him. Maybe it wasn't his. Who knows? That's not referred to.
No, you see, if I had owned that windmill and I had no mortgage on it,
Yeah,
I'd have kept it.
rented it out.
Yeah, they're not, I don't think they need the money.
It doesn't seem that way anyway, especially if they're downsizing. They've sold her massive family home.
Exactly.
Maybe the maintenance is really expensive or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't be cheap, I suppose. There's not that many people who can fix up a windmill when things go wrong.
No, it's a specialist operation.
In any case, Jonathan gets extremely and inappropriately right on when Polly asks Nina to pick some cotton.
We're going to come back to this because I think this... I know what they're trying to do, but I think they shouldn't have done this.
Nah.
It's bad. They're trying to make casual racism a twist, and they're trying to play with it, and I don't think they should do that.
But this isn't casual racism. This is a...
No, but Jonathan's interpreting it as casual racism, and the way that the line has been written is phrased in a way that is meant to make you think, is she being racist? Is she not being racist?
But see, this is the thing. It's Jonathan isn't that type of person, as we noted previously with the transgender character. He doesn't.
Jack,
He doesn't know what to say or how to react. He's all befuddled. He's not the type of person who gets on their high horse with this type of thing and is able to. He's perceiving things that don't exist when in the past he was blind to things that actually did exist.
It's a bit of a change, isn't it?
Yeah.
But either way, I think it was a misstep to include this entire it's not even a plot, but this thread.
Yeah.
Cotton thread, I suppose. No, they shouldn't have done it. It doesn't. It's not a good enough plot point to justify inclusion.
And also, I must admit that it's not the type of term in the UK that you automatically pick up
It's
on.
contrived. She wouldn't have said that. It's not what she would have said to her.
But you know what I'm saying? That's cotton picking is an American.
Yeah. Yes, but even from Polly's point of view, she would have said, choose a thread.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have said, go and pick some cotton.
No.
The phrase is only in because it's wordplay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, gets us into trouble every week.
Let's move on.
Okay.
We find out that they are building a scarecrow for the annual Scarecrow Festival, organised by the Reverend Wendell Wilkie, who is apparently a very big fan of Jonathan's.
So we're here. Jonathan does not, however, want to participate in the Scarecrow Derby.
And Polly again has a go at Jonathan and tells him that he should enter the contest and to lighten up. enter the community spirit.
Basically, be the person she wants him to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's a threat as well, isn't it?
Polly would hate me.
Well,
And you.
Yeah, but we would choose then not to marry her.
Indeed.
Anyway, back at Daemon's Roost.
Stephen and Alison are looking at old pictures, and he says that he can see her mother's resemblance in her eyes. It's her mother, of course you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a great revelation, is
No,
it?
I thought that was going to be a clue of some sort, and I think it's worth reminding our listeners, neither of us has already watched this.
No, this was our first time watching
Yeah.
this. First and second time.
So I'm taking notes based on what I actually think as opposed to what I know is coming up.
Sure. Alison asks Philippa why she's been invited back to the house, and Philippa says she's not sure, acts a little bit shady. She's kind of evasive, I would say, or she appears evasive.
Yeah, and we then find out that after her mother's death, her stepfather, who is Clore, sent her to a foster home, which is why she can't understand the recent contact that he has made by this letter.
Yeah. Philippa, wanting to pivot away from this conversation, starts prying into Stephen's backstory.
Yeah. So
It's for exposition reasons, isn't it? It comes across a bit clunky.
what do we find out?
Well, his first wife was poisoned to death, but he's found Alison now and they will face the future together.
Yeah, well, for a period, for a time. Alison then gasps. She is startled and unnerved to see a picture with her mother in the background up at a window in what looks like a scream of terror.
It does look like a scream of terror, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I quite liked the effect when we kind of zoom in on the photo. I think it's Sandy Johnson's back directing for this one. He does a good job there. He does a lot of the Gothic-y ones there.
Yeah.
Some of the better episodes.
You know, I agree with you. I liked the zoom in. It was quite eerie.
Yeah, effective.
We're at the graveyard. I think it's a graveyard of...
Of the house next to it had a chapel, I think, at the side. And I don't know if it's a graveyard or if it's just Surtees's grave alone.
Maybe.
It's not clear. I've written graveyard, but
Yeah.
thinking back, it might just be the one.
Where the couple read the Latin on his headstone, which translates as... Don't remember.
I didn't write it down.
Okay.
I remember them looking at it.
Who once commanded devils.
Okay.
And this headstone obviously belongs to Jacob Surtees, who we see died in 1823. And they reference the legend, which was backed up by witnesses at this time.
Yeah, contemporary witnesses. Eyewitnesses are always reliable, obviously.
Always.
Alison looks up to the window that the photo showed her mother at, and she's convinced that there must be something around here that her mother saw.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought that was quite a leap.
Yeah, even if she did, what are the chances of it still being there?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been something in the room. Like someone could have stabbed her in the back. Although, no, because...
Yeah. Or she could just have seen people or someone doing something.
Yeah.
Most likely someone doing something that's not going to still be there.
She might have been yawning.
Yeah, she'd look quite terrified. Anyway, Alison then has an idea to move things forward that might help. She recalls that there was a guy who helped Stephen out when he was accused of murdering his first wife. And I think we're led to believe it might be Jonathan, and we kind of get a segue.
We do. We cut to the Creek house where the bell goes as Jonathan is about to eat his breakfast, and he opens it to find the diminutive Reverend Wilkie, who was advised to pop round by Nina.
Yeah, he's been chatting to Nina, who said Jonathan's such a lovely man, he won't mind if you stop by, which doesn't seem right at all.
So in at the breakfast table, Wilkie asks about some current mysteries, and then nicely references Satan's chimney as the cafetiere is plunged on the table.
Yeah, I have an issue with that.
Okay.
Satan's chimney ended with him covering up a murder. So, how does he know about Satan's chimney?
Ah, that's a very good point, Ian, yes. I think he watched it on the TV like...
He got the DVD box set before he came round.
He then goes on to name his favourite mysteries before revealing the purpose of his visit.
He wants to talk to them about Mr. Tyree, doesn't he?
A Patrick Tyree.
I don't think that's what he was called when we first heard of him.
No, are you sure?
I am reliably informed. I didn't go back and watch House of Monkeys. If anyone has, I think he was called maybe Andrew or something like that in the first one. We can only assume that the BBC didn't approve that name second time around. But then, why not just use the surname?
Yeah.
I don't understand. But anyway, doing a bit of chaplaincy, the Reverend has met with Tyree in prison, and he has found God, and he will soon be out. He's a changed man, and he's grateful to Jonathan for allowing him to reflect on his crimes and repent for his sins. Now, Tyree never met Jonathan. How does he know Jonathan was even involved? It's maybe at trial, I guess.
Yeah, been a witness.
Yeah, but if you remember back to the character of Tyree in House of Monkeys, he was an activist.
Yes, he was a swampy type.
Yeah, he was protesting against the use of animals and the keeping of these monkeys and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing this guy in white man dreadlocks and all that type of stuff. He is not what we come to see in the next scene, because we immediately cut to the windmill, where a knife-wielding man is in the bushes watching the Hasselhoffs move Jonathan's belongings.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because every other time they've referred to a past case, it's been one that wasn't televised. They could have done that again. They could just have referred to a different case, use a different person with a different name, and it would have been fine. But why reference a character and then change everything about him? It doesn't make any sense if they're going to use one that's been established.
Yeah, who knows?
Absolutely.
We see Tyree discover the new address of Jonathan's before secreting himself in one of his old tricks.
He does. He's almost sliced up, but the movers are forced to rush.
So back to the Creek House, and after 2 hours, the unfunny, monologuing vicar has left them alone to moan about him and his less than adept magic trickery.
Polly has apparently interceded with a cut finger, but it seems to be genuine and she's not very happy.
I think we're led to believe that he's left the building, but no, he's just at the toilet, and he returns to have another go at impressing them. But as he begins, the Hasselhoffs arrive to start unloading things in the shed.
Yeah, we kind of cut back and forth as the Reverend puts some thread and a couple of buttons in his mouth, presumably to thread the buttons and tie knots in it. But as in fact, the box with Tyree in it is dropped on the ground, presumably quite painfully, he is shocked, startled, and swallows them all whole. He does promise to eventually return. Why would you do that?
For comedy effect.
No, Polly is outraged.
Well, more than that, I think she's a little bit nauseous.
Yeah, absolutely disgusted. And she joins Jonathan outside to deal with what the removers are dropping.
Yeah, now whilst they are out there, Wilkie is still inside, and he hears the answer machine take a message from Alison asking for Jonathan's help.
Yes, there's a presence in the house. I have felt your presence.
Want to do it again?
I know what you're getting for Christmas.
Outside, Polly unwraps this saucy trick that Tyree was hiding in, and they both wonder what to do with it.
They have a brainwave, collectively.
Yeah, what's that?
They gift it to the good Reverend, who is delighted, and we cut to him leaving with it in the back of his car.
A Volvo, just like Maddie's.
Absolutely.
And back inside their house, we see Polly listen to the message from Alison and ponder whether or not to delete it before we cut to them in bed later on.
We assume from that Wilkie didn't mention it. He's heard it come in and he's not said anything.
Well, he wouldn't necessarily. It's an answer machine.
Also, in 2016, did anyone still have answer machines that let you hear the message?
No.
Surely it's all gone to the sort of 1571 type phone company.
Even in 2016, does anyone still have a landline?
Well, some folk might have a landline.
Old people.
Yes. Yeah, up in the bedroom, as you say, Polly starts to pry about some of the content of the message. I think Alison referred to a striped unicorn affair, but she's not picked up the name of it quite right.
He tells her of Stephen, who is a research chemist.
Before that, we need to note what Polly thought Alison said. I don't understand how she misheard this, but she thought it was the striped eunuch on a ferry.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah. Wordplay. Woo.
Yeah, so Jonathan talks about Stephen being a research chemist and being wrongly accused of murdering his high-profile bank executive wife in what appeared to be an open and shut case. However, he then proceeds to, with the aid of flashback, outline what happened.
For several weeks, she'd been getting these anonymous death threats. Someone with some kind of vendetta against the capitalist classes.
Stephen, come see this. There's another one. I don't understand how these keep arriving. Who is this?
And all signed rather mysteriously, with the name Anti-Money. Night in question, the door to the bedroom's all locked and bolted securely from the inside, taking these threats very seriously, and a brand new sealed bottle of mineral water is opened, which they share between them. So he's first into bed and fairly soon out like a light. An hour or so goes by, she finds another one of these notes in her book, announcing that she's about to die that very night.
Wake up, this was inside my book. Someone's been inside the room.
He does his best to reassure her. The house and the room are totally airtight. No one can possibly get in. The whole thing's just someone's idea of a sick joke. Next morning, room all securely locked still as before, and she's lying there.
Her water was poisoned, and his was fine, and the fact that he was a chemist and stood to inherit her money means that he was immediately arrested.
Do you know what my favourite part of the flashback was? Jonathan in his duffel coat.
Yeah.
Old school.
We need more duffel coat.
Yeah.
I've noted here that unless this is an incredible double bluff, you would never do that with the doors locked.
Who locks the... I suppose she's had death threats.
Yeah. In any case, we see Jonathan arrive on the scene to do his thing and note a kid's painting of a zebra that Stephen insists had no horn on it when his wife stuck it to the wall.
Oh, that's dramatic.
Jonathan then patronisingly says that with this and some misaligned books, it was enough for him to prove a fit-up, and as Polly turns to take a drink of her own water, thinks better of it.
Yeah, she doesn't take it, so she thinks Jonathan's poisoned her.
You would like to think so.
That'd probably be a good way to resolve the series.
Yeah.
Let's propose it. Next week's episode, we'll put that up as our suggestion.
Okay.
Jonathan tries out all the things that he's solved on Polly.
Back over to Daemon's Roost. What's happening?
Ryman seems to still be installing cameras. How many cameras are in this network?
Yeah, I mean, this is a one-day job, really, isn't it?
He's at it.
Oh, he's definitely at it.
Alison, meanwhile, is in the lounge, and the good reverend has shown up. So
Yes.
he's intercepted that phone message. Instead of mentioning it to anybody, he's just gone and done the job himself.
Well, he's trying to perform an exorcism.
Yeah, but he's using a phone line, probably an 0891 number in India somewhere, according to what he was saying.
Yeah.
He has a bit of an issue because he hasn't brought with him a reliquary of St. Ignatius.
A problem I have on a daily basis.
I never bring a reliquary of St. Ignatius, unless I do and I don't realise it.
I think you may sometimes. Just get a sense.
Depends what shoes I'm wearing. Anyhow, up the stairs, Stephen's looking a bit shifty and shuffling through some of Clore's old things. Movie, paraphernalia, books, etc.
Yes, and we see that he finds something intriguing. But back downstairs, Wilkie apologises to Alison, who tells him that it doesn't matter, she's happy that he came round, but that she's not religious. And then, seeing the CCTV, she decides to continue the conversation outside.
Yeah, I think she's a bit prompted because Ryman comes in and gets his stuff off the chair.
Yeah. So we're now out in the woods, and we hear that her parents got divorced when she was 2, and that she and her sisters moved to Daemon's Roost with her mother when she remarried Clore, but she found it weird and creepy.
No wonder.
Yeah, can you imagine going out there as a kid?
Especially when she noted changes in her mother's behaviour. She was becoming weak and shaky, and it was frightening to watch.
Yeah, and the fact that Clore himself loved the atmosphere of the place and the legend of Surtees who had lived there, so he's a creepy guy anyway.
Yeah, to start with. And he's got all these posters up.
I think she attributes the change in her mother's physical appearance and attitude to sinister forces.
Yeah, some kind of haunting. She refers to a hobgoblin, which she overheard her mother referring to when she talked to Clore.
Yeah, I think she talked to Clore, but also she was regularly crying at night.
Yeah, and gasping for no reason.
Until she is found dead, eyes staring in the daytime in her garden.
It's unfortunate.
On top of this,
Yeah, the other 2 kids quickly died too.
from unexplained deaths.
Well, not explained to the child anyway.
Yeah.
And she is sent away, as previously mentioned, to a foster home.
That's very, very harsh.
So your mother and sisters are dead. On you go.
Yeah.
I don't want you to die either. No, wait, we'll not mention that. We'll just send you off and not say anything. A message comes in from Stephen. He's found something that they might be interested in.
Yes, I think it's a passage from one of Surtees' manuscripts, seemingly giving a clue to what has been going on. Now, what was this clue?
I didn't write down the exact phrases, but...
That's too bad because I've written in my notes, Ian shall explain.
Stephen, and I think the other two as well, believe that Surtees would have wanted to be discovered. Like his genius to be known.
Yeah, he had a bit of an ego.
Yeah. And the author of this book also thinks that, and he thinks he's identified a passage from Surtees' own writing that gives them a clue, and it refers to, what is it, the foot that doesn't fit?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and they don't know what that means.
So back over to the Creek house. Jonathan and Polly are going through some of his old junk.
It's got a really old globe with countries that don't exist, like East Germany, where I was just on a holiday.
They also discover his brother's first Conjuring set.
Stop.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Terry?
No, reject that headcanon. He never had a brother.
No, he can't. He can't suddenly in the last ever episode say Terry Creek.
Yeah, first of all, what's the point? They don't do anything with it.
No.
They're trying to make this emotional thread that runs from literally this point halfway through the episode to the end of this episode. Doesn't reach any emotional highs, doesn't touch anybody, doesn't progress the plot, doesn't progress the character.
Okay, I do agree with you. I thought there was a nice enough scene at the end. But you're right in that if you're wanting to play on these emotional heartstrings, you have to develop this over time.
Yeah.
You have to have more flashbacks over the seasons. You have to have discussions about him. You have to have Terry being more of a driver or motivator of Jonathan's character and career.
It's heavily implied but not stated that Terry's dead.
Yes.
And it's also implied that he got Jonathan interested in magic.
Yeah.
Which Polly doesn't approve of.
No.
So where's the magic to this story? It's just...
But you can't do it in the last episode. Or the last episode.
It doesn't even fit with the rest of the plot.
No.
There's no purpose. It's just, he's going through some old stuff and, remember that brother I used to have?
Polly's like, nope, who? What?
You've never mentioned a brother before.
Yeah, Terry.
I mentioned him in the episode that we didn't broadcast.
Terry Creek. That sounds ridiculous. No.
Old TC.
Yeah, anyway. We also find out that Jonathan has a middle name.
Jimmy, what's his middle name?
Well, we don't find out what it is, but he has one that begins with a W. So what do we think?
Wendell.
No, that's the Reverend.
Could be.
No, it is.
Yeah, but it could also be Jonathan's middle name.
No, because then that would be mentioned.
Warwick.
That's also Reverend related.
Walker. Wilson. William.
Wilbur.
Watson. Same as mine.
But if you think about it, Jonathan and Terry are very common names. They're nothing too extravagant or exotic. I'm thinking William.
It could be. Or it could be like his mother's maiden name or
Could
something.
be,
That's
yeah.
what I got. Or I got my grand's maiden name.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Anyway, Polly reads out with some comic asides Jonathan's glowing review of his performance in A Tale of Two Cities, where someone took the role of another and gave their life in order that they could live. And I thought this was going to be...
germane to the plot.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not, no.
I think this is where Sarah Alexander's at her best when they're doing the comedy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's certainly better than Julia Sawala was.
Yeah, well, I mean, she has a background. She's a comedy actor.
Yeah, I think she's quite good at that.
Yeah. We like to think so. It's her career has been based on it.
I'm just saying we were quite critical of Polly generally, but these are the scenes where she's at her least bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've been critical of Polly, but we've not been critical of Sarah Alexander.
No.
We see a horrific picture of a young Jonathan as well.
Yes. And then we get a flashback where we find out his brother was Scottish.
Yeah.
It's another bizarre twist.
Yeah, we see Terry captivating Jonathan with tales of pixies along with proof in the form of letters that he placed under his pillow.
That is creepy.
I thought it was quite nice.
But did you not say that letters told him to be nice to his brother?
Yeah, yes, that's quite fun.
Okay.
Like I say, I don't have an issue with this whole... I wouldn't have an issue with it if it had been developed over time, but throwing in the last episode just feels like such a...
Yeah. I mean, especially when it's so similar to what happened in Gorgon's Wood. That would have been a time to mention it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's still not going to build a scarecrow either. That's how he finishes this conversation.
It is. And we head to an impressive display, which is accompanied by the Hitchcock theme tune.
Did you not find it a little bit hot fuzz? With all the jolly laughing people, and they kind of stare at Jonathan as he goes past.
We drop in on Wilkie, who is pondering Surtees' message very seriously and in great detail. Don't we? I think he's in his
Yep, he's doing
rectory.
his thinking in sort of a Father Alberic type way.
Yes. And it looks like his hard work has paid off, as we see he has his own eureka moment.
We love a wee eureka moment, don't we?
We do. In this case, it is we.
That's offensive.
To who?
We people.
Back at Daemon's Roost, Alison and Stephen are on the phone to the excited Wilkie, who explains that the foot is a poetry term, and that the solution relates to a line in a verse that doesn't fit, and results in a suggestion that the clue lies beneath Surtees' grave.
Yeah, it's the one line that has the wrong number of syllables.
Mm-hmm.
So it stands out, and it's frankly ridiculous that nobody's worked this out before now.
You think?
Well, if anyone's spent any time on it, the guy's written a book about it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so the clue is beneath me now, which he takes to mean Surtees' grave.
Mm-hmm. So they head over to the grave.
As you would.
Yeah, with a nervous rhyming. How does that work? How do you get the CCTV installer to dig up a grave for you? That doesn't... How do you broach that subject?
The fact that he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there.
You still put up cameras, come and exhume a body for us.
Would you mind? I mean, that's an absolute nonsense for a start. That's the type of thing you want to keep very, very, very much under the radar.
Very much.
You're breaking the law here.
Yes.
You don't ask a stranger to pick up a shovel.
And if you're the stranger, you don't say yes.
Of course not. He's acting as if he is hired help who works for the...
Yeah, he's just like their house person.
But he's not. He's a CCTV guy.
Yeah. Anyhow, we get a stupidly bad special effect as the grave is opened and the coffin is exhumed and the lid is removed.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Slimer.
Very much like Slimer.
Yeah. Although that was 1984, so you forgave them the graphics back then.
Yeah, 35 years later, it's not quite as... Not quite 35, you know what I mean.
Back to Jonathan's house, or his shed to be specific, where he has relented and has built an impressive Hitchcock scarecrow.
Is it not Philjupitus?
It's not, no.
Polly thinks it is.
She does, because she's stupid.
Okay, she's figured out this eunuch plan.
Okay, what's she come up with?
The horn of the zebra was made of poisonous paint that dripped into the water somehow.
It's ridiculous, but not any more than the actual solution.
No, absolutely. As so many of the suggestions of sidekicks have been through the years. Mm-hmm. Jonathan says it's good, but it's not correct.
Yeah, again, been a bit patronising.
As always. He does explain.
Yes, he says that a poisoned pellet was placed behind the books on her bookshelf, and when a book was removed, it allowed the pellet to roll down and drop into her glass.
Doesn't explain how it wasn't the husband, though.
No. Doesn't explain why he would need to go through such a rigmarole. Well,
no, the rigmarole is suggesting someone who wasn't in the room. So there had to be a method that...
Yes, but you don't want to rely on that, actually. It's a Rube Goldberg contraption.
Yeah, it needs a lot of things to go right, doesn't it?
It does.
How did the person who wasn't in the room know what book she was reading?
Yeah, that's a good point. But falling from that height, there's no guarantee that the pellet would drop into such a small...
How do you know the glass is going to be placed?
How do you know that it's not going to make a big plonk noise and she gets suspicious? At that point, it doesn't work, you have to strangle her.
But you're not in the room, so you can't...
You would just... What you should have done in the first place is murder her outside the house and blame it on a stranger.
Anyhow.
Not saying he should have done that, but that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Not this double, treble bluff nonsense.
Yeah, but even, yeah, there's nothing about this plan that excludes the husband. I don't understand how he's been exonerated on this basis.
It's nonsense.
No, it's terrible. Meanwhile, while we're hearing about this, our old friend Tyree is cutting himself out of that box at last. His concussion is worn off. He hasn't yet died, although it's however long later. And then Wendell Wilkie's garage, I presume, himself.
Do we not? There's a phone call that's made here from Wilkie, who references a missed phone call. I think Polly looks a bit sheepish at this point because she realises that Jonathan's found out that she didn't pass on the message.
Okay, I didn't write about that. Okay, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what happens.
And as I say, meanwhile, Tyree's cutting himself free from the box.
He is.
How much time's passed? Is this only one day later?
I don't know.
Same
Wasn't
day?
tracking it, yeah.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Over at Daemon's Roost.
The shocked Ryman tells Clore that he has reburied the coffin and pleads that he has nothing to do with the whole escapade. So they've told Clore about what they found.
Why?
Don't know, because he's an expert maybe, or...
But he can't respond. It won't help them.
Yeah, good point.
Stephen's a bit spooked, generally, and Alison wishes that Clore could respond.
Yeah.
And he then starts going a bit mental and dies.
Yeah, I think, firstly, I mean, Stephen says that from what they've witnessed, it puts an end to any cynical detachment. No, it doesn't.
No, I don't think he says it puts an end to it. It challenges their cynical detachment, which is fair enough. Got Clore at this point, he starts looking at Alison's phone and then out the door, and then back to the phone, then out the door, then back to the phone, and then dies.
He does.
For no reason.
None whatsoever.
He was concentrating so hard he had another aneurysm.
He broke his own neck.
Anyway, you've got Wendell Wilkie, the Reverend. Wendell? Is that right?
Yeah.
Over at his house. He's talking to Jonathan about the case as Tyree lurks outside the window.
Yes, and when Wilkie leaves to turn off the washing machine, Tyree takes his opportunity. He climbs into the room and then brutally and violently stabs Jonathan several times in the back before fleeing. So that's the end of Jonathan Creek. Credits.
Yep, that was good.
Mm-hmm. Got his comeuppance in the end for being a smart arse.
That's it. Justice done. Turns out, though, that it wasn't Jonathan Creek. It was a effigy of Jonathan Creek that Wendell had around anyway.
Yeah, it was the Jonathan Creek scarecrow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And Jonathan was, in fact, just on speakerphone.
Yes, and when Wilkie returns to the room, he has to explain that there's been an incident.
That's great. I quite liked that.
Yeah, I think a glass of red wine got spilled for a bit of blood spatter effect as well.
So sometime later, we cut to the cops who are now on the scene, along with Jonathan and Polly.
The Scottish policeman here gets my favourite line.
What's
I think
that?
possibly the entire series.
Okay, what's that?
He wonders why Wendell had a life-sized effigy of Creek, but says, "The personal proclivities of the clergy have always been a closed book to me, and are not germane to this inquiry."
A bit Blackadder.
I liked it.
Jonathan is advised that Tyree might strike again, but as they don't have the resources for round-the-clock protection, it is suggested that he find somewhere to hold up in. That's not how it works. A recently released prisoner with violent tendencies.
You would presumably have a parole officer to check in with.
Yeah, but you don't just say, well, you're on your own here, sonny boy.
Nah, they wouldn't do that.
No.
But I think that the police officer just generally doesn't like them.
Why?
He doesn't have to have a reason.
Okay.
He's Scottish and grumpy.
Fine.
Perhaps because Creek interferes in cases and gets murderers off with things.
Yeah. Back to Daemon's Roost. This apparently fits the bill for a hideaway because we see them turn up to be met by Stephen and Alison, who is thankful of their presence and invites them to stay as long as they wish.
Yeah. She's obviously now the lady of the house now that Clore's away.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking is that you're very nervous. You're back at the place where your family all died. Your stepfather has just recently died. So what you do is you invite someone who is on the run from a knife-wielding maniac to live with you.
Why not? Why not? She also introduces them at this stage to Philippa.
Up in the bedroom, as Jonathan looks at a painting of Daemon's Roost, Polly moans again about the circumstances that Jonathan's previous life has put them in.
Yeah, she says that on account of this knife-wielding psycho who wants to kill him, they've now got a romantic break at the set of the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, that's fair enough, I think.
And then she finds a dead rat.
Yes.
Which, although a delicacy in Kilmarnock, is not as pleasant for Polly.
I was going to say apologies to any listeners in Kilmarnock, but I don't think they deserve it.
No, they can get stuffed. Let's move on. Jonathan is not particularly interested in this dead rat. He's more intrigued by this original artwork of the house as it appeared in the past.
Yeah, I said that.
Did you say it out loud?
Yeah, that's what he's. Yeah, I did indeed.
think
That's
you
what he's
did.
looking at the start of that scene in the bedroom.
And sure it's not in your head.
Nah.
Folk can rewind and check. No one's actually going to rewind, so.
No. They know I'm right.
Anyhow, he is persuaded to deal with the dead rat and finds a second one.
He does. We should say, with regards to that painting, that it depicts other buildings that are no longer there.
The chapel, I think, is mentioned.
Yeah. Down in the living room, they are all gathered, watching Clore's most famous work and trying to find out something that may explain their current predicament.
When was it electromagnetism first kicked in? Wasn't there some magician about that time who used it in one of his tricks?
Robert Houdin, the light and heavy chest, around mid-1800s.
Yeah, it would have to be a pretty powerful force to whisk people like that 50 feet through the air.
Or alternatively, a very weak force. This letter, Alison, you say he sent to you.
About 2 weeks ago. It doesn't say very much, just how sorry he was we'd lost contact all those years, and now it was time I learned the truth. Second page is just directions to the house and how he hopes we'll both be able to settle down here.
I wonder why he'd do that. Put the date again at the top, which is 4 days after the date on the first page. Can't have taken him 5 days to write, what, a couple of dozen lines?
But what about last night, guys? It was like nothing human came out of there.
Don't know, there's definitely some stuff going on around here that someone's desperate to keep a lid on, but how the hell it all fits together.
I think he's got some thinking to do on this letter.
Mm-hmm. In the study, later, Jonathan notes the amount of CCTV around the place, and Philippa tells him that this is also a mystery, and it was something apparently Clore ordered just before Alison returned.
Or just before his aneurysm.
Mm-hmm. She then seems to take an interest in the fact that Polly is having an early night. A little bit of misdirection going on here.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice enough.
Jonathan confirms that she's a bit done in with it all, I think.
Mm-hmm. So up in the bedroom, she's alone and frightened by a hanging dressing gown, so decides to go down to the kitchen, where she received another jolt in the form of Wilkie.
I like this one because they hide him behind a fridge door
Yeah.
that only comes up to her waist because of his height. He's able to appear as if from nowhere, and tries to return her buttons, which he has had removed from his anus.
So, understandably, she feels a little bit sick, and he gives her some advice on how to reduce this feeling.
He suggests that she soaks on some ice cubes because that deals with nausea.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird one. They're at a house, a very large house, that she doesn't know.
Yeah. She's helping herself from the fridge.
Yeah, if I couldn't sleep, the last thing I would do is get up in the middle of the night and just walk down to the fridge in the kitchen.
I would stay in my bed.
Yeah.
At all costs.
Yeah. Not even because, necessarily being frightened, just you're in someone else's house.
Yeah,
you don't go down to
wander
their
around,
kitchen.
Yeah. Elsewhere, back at the study, Philip is talking to Jonathan and talks about how Clore had a wicked sense of humour.
Yes, especially when he was drinking, which had been, I think, prohibited by his doctor.
Yeah, he did crazy things like make the ice cubes out of pure vodka.
Yeah.
It's not possible. The temperature the vodka freezes at is lower than your average household refrigerator or freezer. But we'll maybe give him the benefit of the doubt and say he had it altered to go extra cold.
We see the effect of this as Polly now stumbles back from the kitchen to her bedroom, soaking on these ice cubes. Now, not only is it impossible from a chemical point of view, as you've just pointed out, as soon as you start to soak in
you would know.
You would know straight away. And how many of them would you need to soak on to get that drunk? She was stumbling around. She was drunk.
Yeah, one ice cube, maybe a shot of vodka.
Maybe. And you would notice as soon as you put them in your mouth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, she's grabbed in the bedroom.
Yeah, she's shocked as Jonathan leans over and turns on the light, and he says he was trying not to shock her. But it gets worse.
Why?
She rolls to the side and finds a dead body in the bed with her.
Are we assuming she's into the wrong bedroom?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
How would Jonathan know that she was in that room?
He maybe heard her go by if he was in the study, if it's next to that room.
Meh.
He doesn't say anything about you've gone into the wrong room or anything like that, though. But
No.
she's absolutely terrified. It reminded me a little bit of Taylor's Dummy when the body was being prepared, and a little bit of the one where Polly's father dies and the Undertaker's playing around with the body.
Yeah.
But it's a bit weird. Why have they tucked the body into the bed?
Anyhow, up in Alison's bedroom, she is surprised to find Stephen is not there. And so she herself heads down to the kitchen where the lights are no longer working.
Yeah, just seconds later, or has time passed?
Who knows? And she also is grabbed from behind, but not by a friendly hand this time.
No.
What happens to her?
She's knocked out.
She is. Up in the Creek bedroom, he is still puzzling over the gap in the dates on Clore's letters and suggests that someone is trying to be clever. He doesn't like that page 1 of the letter talks of her learning the truth, whilst the second page changes tone and is a big list of directions.
Polly's there, still awake, trying to sober up a little bit, and takes a bit of an interest when Jonathan shows her issues with this second page.
Yeah, I think he concludes that the dates were added to the numbers to disguise what was already there, and that pages 2 to 5 were removed before Alison got them in order to stop her reading about the truth.
Yeah, no reason is ever found for that.
No, that's a good point.
Just going to warn you now, don't expect to be given some kind of revelation here. We never find out why these pages were removed from the letter.
Where do we go next?
Oh, Alison wakes in a nightmare.
A real life nightmare. She's in a dungeon and is bound.
It's reminiscent of the scenes from the movie they watched. She sees Stephen in the cage and he is thrown by the necromancer into the flame.
Yeah, he's trapped behind bars initially before a masked and caped necromancer releases the gate and he is swept into this fiery abyss, just like in the movie.
At this, Alison passes out and wakes the next morning, I guess, on the lawn.
Yeah, in a very distressed state, as you would.
She's covered in bruises, and the others who are taking breakfast at this stage see her approach.
Polly and Jonathan arrive for breakfast to find only Philippa is there, and she tells them that Wilkie is at a christening and isn't sure where Alison is, or Stephen for that matter.
No.
But they all immediately see the zombie-like wandering alley stumble up the garden towards them.
Yeah, she's clearly upset.
You would be. And she tells him what she remembers happening the night before, just as the bell rings, and Philippa goes to let the funeral directors in, leaving Alison to tell them what happened just before Clore died.
Yeah, he started nodding at her phone and at the door.
Yeah, Polly tries to put her mind at rest, and she goes off to lie down, allowing Jonathan to voice his current thinking to his wife.
Well, he's not happy with her, is he? Because Polly's told Alison, it'll just have been a nightmare, don't worry, everything will be fine. And Jonathan says, no, it was real.
Yeah.
And doesn't like that she's given false comfort.
He doesn't. And at this point, I think Polly receives a call from Nina.
I think it's a message. It's a message with a photo.
Something seems to click into place in Jonathan's mind.
A wee bit of an epiphany here, and he wants to now go and examine the grave for himself.
And that's where we find him rooting around over Surtees' grave. Jonathan finds something which seems to hold the answers.
Ah. Now then.
A rusty ring. All is solved.
Come on. A rusty ring that was once part of...
Oh. Think I'm starting to see. Am I?
Knowing that one day someone was going to fathom out that clue as a final parting shot in order to scare the living crap out of them, he sets up what is essentially a very high-powered jack-in-the-box. And a pretty nifty piece of work, you have to say, to stand that test of time.
So he was never even buried here in the first place. Oh. You might be right. There's another piece of the spring here as well, look. But we still haven't found anything that tells us who's behind all that other.
Now, the fact we haven't found anything might tell us exactly who's behind it.
If it's rusty, how would it have sprung?
It wouldn't have. That's a good point.
It would just have disintegrated in the trick. And what was the purpose of the trick? You see these things come flying out the coffin and
Just to scare people, I think.
So just for a laugh.
Yeah.
Which he won't get because he's dead.
Yeah.
Great. Brilliant.
Up in Alison's bedroom, and still understandably distressed, she calls Stephen's phone and follows the ring to his phone, which is lying on the ground outside. So she goes down, picks it up, and sees 2 missed calls. One from her, and the other from an unknown person at 11:05 the previous evening.
Ooh.
Back to the graveyard.
I should point out that doesn't make sense either from what we learn.
Okay.
He didn't miss the call, he took the call.
Did he?
That's how he got it. Or did he go outside to answer it? When we see the flashback? It doesn't matter, we'll come back to that.
Back in the graveyard, Jonathan talks of the coincidence of the magic dungeon appearing just after the grave was opened, and perhaps it was a clue to the entrance of it.
Yeah, and they have a bit of a chat here about whether this is related to the death of Stephen's first wife.
Yeah, they still don't know who killed, I think her name's Imelda. And if it was a grudge against Stephen himself, why wait so long to take revenge?
Suddenly, Jonathan has an epiphany, but he doesn't share it with us.
Polly asks what he's just discovered, but all he offers is the term research chemist, and the fact that this clue has eluded him for 6 years. So we're back up to the bedroom where Alison is, and she starts to go through. Now, is this her husband's old files, or...
It's stuff that Stephen's brought with him, I think.
No, he's only arrived in a taxi.
Yeah, so what is all this
And it's
stuff?
called Stephen's files. He's not a 10-year-old schoolboy. You wouldn't have your own Stephen's files on it. It'd be your own files. It'd be
My files, or files.
or files related to what it was.
So what is it? Where did it come from?
I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking perhaps it was clippings and information collected by Clore over the years.
About Stephen?
I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense.
No,
I think we are meant to believe it is Stephen's own files.
unless is she. See, I wasn't 100% sure that it was back in the bedroom of Daemon's Roost. Did she go home to her own house?
Oh, maybe.
But then again, how far away is that? And we don't see her leaving.
Or coming back.
Yeah.
In any event,
What does she find?
an envelope? Sealed?
Yeah, I think it's information related to the death of her husband's ex-wife.
Okay.
Back to the churchyard, Jonathan starts to explain that the signature on the death threats from anti-money bothered him, and he thinks perhaps the name was a code to taunt the investigators.
Stephen, being a research chemist, would know that antimony is an element
Yes, a toxic metallic element,
with the chemical symbol SB, his own initials.
which leads both of them to think that perhaps Stephen staged the murder to look like he did it, only to bring in Jonathan to get him off. Now, this is very, very chancy. The old double, triple bluff stuff isn't.
Yeah.
I would not be putting my freedom in the hands of someone, no matter how smart they are, to come up with the real, to follow your clues and not realise that these clues were set up in the first place as well. It's far, like I said earlier, take her out to a park and strangle her.
And you've thought about this far too much.
No, that's the opposite of Stephen has overthought it, trying to be too smart. Stab or kill or whatever it is in public, and they'll assume it's been some random.
We see another sort of flashbacky recreation. I don't know, is this in Jonathan's imagination?
What was this of?
We get the flashback of Stephen watching his wife die.
Yeah, it must be his it must be his reenactment, his
own
interpretation
head.
of what's happened. Yeah, because there is no flashback to that.
No.
Because he wasn't there.
Yeah, and Stephen and the wife are both now dead.
Yeah.
We assume.
Anyway, Polly is still sceptical, and Jonathan agrees that he will need far more than this theory of his to convince Alison and the police.
Meanwhile, back in Alison's room, or wherever she is, she's found this sealed envelope that I referred to earlier, and it turns out to contain the rest of her letter.
And at this we see a figure sit down beside her, and she turns to see a worried-looking Philippa.
Oh, must still be in Daemon's Roost then.
Yes, it must be, yeah. So, yeah, where did all these files come from? So it's either not Stephen's, it's either Clore's or Philippa's.
Well, Philippa admits knowing what else was in the letter
Yeah.
and realising that
So it must be Clore's.
Alison hadn't read it. So it's either Clore's or it's Stephen's.
Yeah.
I think it's Stephen, but I don't understand what purpose Stephen had in removing this part of the letter. What difference does it make to him if she knew about her health condition or not? Which we'll come to.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, outside, Jonathan and Polly find a concealed entrance as somebody watches them.
Inside the dungeon, with their torches. Where did they get their torches from?
I don't know.
They've
always got a torch. Hiding.
They follow steps further downwards until they come to a small shuttered window-style entrance, which Jonathan believes is very interesting because he knows what will be on the other side, due to there being only one possibility that ties everything together, including the accounts of the demonic powers.
Yeah, and when they go in, it's a shifted perspective room.
It is. I think it's built at 90 degrees, complete with a very devilish automaton.
Absolutely.
On the floor, what does he find?
There's a circular opening and a book of matches.
Yes.
We assume this is the furnace where the fire burns.
Yes, I think they conclude that it was obviously very recently set alight.
And Jonathan goes looking for the controls.
Yes, which he quickly finds.
This was reminiscent of Mother Redcap.
It was, yes.
The controls in the next room. But the idea here is that the women are so restrained and maybe a bit dopey from drugs or whatever.
And panicked.
Yeah, that they won't realise they're on the wall. I think you would feel that, no matter how restrained you were to the bed.
Yeah, you can feel where...
Would you write it off as nausea? I don't think they all would. I think somebody would know.
Yeah.
And then the idea that this gated door opens and the people all fall in the same way. None of them hang on to the gate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's complete bunkum.
Yeah.
Anyway, things get worse for Jonathan and Polly. What happens?
Tyree shows up while Jonathan's in this control room and Polly's on her own.
Yes.
He demands to know where Jonathan is.
And things get all very stabby and...
Well, yeah, Jonathan starts moving the demon and Tyree fights it, being no longer an animal rights protester and now just a stabby guy who stabs.
It ends up with him, Tyree that is, in the pit of skeletons.
Yes, as Tyree advances on Polly, threatening to make the floor red and sticky, Jonathan opens the pit and they see Stephen's face, so he's dead.
Yep.
That's not been faked. And Tyree falls in, but...
in true horror fashion,
Jonathan stands too close to the edge and Tyree grabs him by the ankle whilst reaching for his knife.
Yeah, so in order to save him...
he murders Tyree.
No, Polly sets fire to the...
Yeah, Jonathan kicks the oil dispensing pipe open and Polly chucks in a match, killing the man, which is never mentioned again.
No, they simply close over the hatch and hug each other.
Yeah, that's it. I take it the fact the emergency services are present means that they've told people this happened. A wee bit later when we see them outside.
Oh, they've definitely told because they have to. They've told Alison about Stephen.
Yes, okay. So Jonathan sees at this stage again, or looks again at this photo from Nina, and realises that he's made a terrible assumption, and it clearly shows who the killer is.
And at this, the camera focuses on the arriving Reverend Wilkie.
That was sneaky. Jonathan has another think about what Clore's gestures meant before he died. And we skip ahead to a club. In the club.
No, it's not a club. It's the
gentleman's club of some kind.
No, it's a hotel restaurant.
It looked like a club.
No, because it's matches from the hotel where the person was staying.
Yeah, what was it called then?
Can't remember.
It seems kind of clubby to me.
Yeah, maybe, but it's not. It's the restaurant bar of a hotel.
Okay, if you say so.
Okay. We see the shadow of Wilkie enter.
Yes, but as Jonathan and Polly approach him, we learn that he is not their target.
He's not, no. Who is? The person who is on his way.
It's, yes, another candidate, Ryman.
Yeah.
The stationary guy who now enters.
Takes a seat on the couch at the bar before the other three go over and sit down beside him. And Jonathan immediately accuses him of killing Stephen due to some family connection.
Ryman's quite dismissive. He knows who Jonathan is. And Jonathan admits at this stage, yes, I'm the guy who helped Stephen get away with killing his wife.
Yeah. Ryman is also confident enough, but he doesn't think that Jonathan has any evidence or certainly anything that can prove what he has been up to.
Yeah, we get another...
Especially after, as you mentioned there, Jonathan making such a mess of the original case.
Well, that's it. He doesn't think his theories will stand up to much. We've seen him struggle in court previously, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Judas Tree in particular. Jonathan, at this point, produces maybe the worst and potentially most racist theory of the entire series.
What's that?
When he says that the painting of the zebra suggests a family connection overseas. Basically, only black children draw zebras.
Oh, yeah. I mean, where did that come from?
It's just racism.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a zoo? Or
Yeah.
cartoons?
No.
Or the alphabet? Every
single one has Z is
zebra.
for zebra.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted. And it continues the theme of questionable decisions on race-related comments in this episode.
Yeah. Best avoided, I think.
Yeah. Ryman insists at this point that everything is denied.
However, Wilkie produces a book of matches that he had taken to light a candle in Daemon's Roost. And it happens to be the same brand of matches, or the hotel-branded matches that they are now in and where Ryman is staying.
Yes, and also a pack were found where they're not at the crime scene in
the dungeon.
chamber. Yeah. So that all ties together.
But still confident, however, Ryman opens up a little.
Imelda, yes, my wife's sister. Gifted, sweet-natured, but far too trusting. Never saw through him. Never saw it coming. But that was his great gift, I suppose. The mask of innocence. Predatory. Reptilian. More than happy to bide his time. Turns out she wasn't worth quite as much as he thought. So he had no choice but to bail out early and look elsewhere.
So you've managed to keep close tabs on him all this time. And what happened next? You heard that he married again to Alison, the young lady who stands to inherit a very large property and estate. What are the chances history's going to repeat itself?
You're still looking for proof of Belkin's guilt, so maybe you'll catch something on one of your cameras that'll give him away.
Claw's final stroke is your stroke of luck. You turn up on the doorstep, claiming the work's already been arranged. The nurse takes your word for it. Claw, by this time, is in no state to say otherwise. Or is he?
Couple of problems with this. I think you've got one. I've got one also. So, Stephen's first wife, Imelda, was Ryman's sister-in-law.
Yes, she was the sister of Ryman's wife.
Yes, so therefore, Stephen was his brother-in-law.
Yeah, but he's never seen him before.
Yeah, exactly. So they've never met before. How and what circumstance? I mean, I understand that families aren't necessarily close, but there's no indication that there'd been any fallout, that they don't talk. And even if there was a fallout, you would still, there's been weddings and things like that. So we have to believe that, Ryman has never seen Stephen, his brother-in-law.
But he must have seen him because he recognises him.
Exactly.
I suppose from the press coverage.
I don't buy this at all. What's your problem with this?
How does Stephen know that Alison's going to inherit anything? She's not related to Clore, so she's not automatically going to inherit unless it's in his will.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time they're estranged. They've not spoken for 15 years.
Yes, it's this letter has been the first communication.
So why is Stephen marrying Alison? So that makes no sense.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And also, why in that circumstance did Stephen have to kill Imelda and not just divorce her?
I know.
If there's not as much money as he thought, take half of it, get divorced. Well, why would you need to kill her unless you're just a psychopath?
Like killing.
But then he didn't kill anybody else.
Well, the fact is he was taunting people, suggests perhaps there is a psychotic side to him.
But it doesn't get discussed here.
No. But getting back to the clip there, Jonathan explains that perhaps what Clore was trying to do when moving his eyes in the final moments of his life,
he didn't.
Was indicate that the man next to him, i.e. Ryman, was a phony, because he was looking up at a poster of a mythical Yeti and then down at his phone, just like a Yeti, must be Ryman. Again,
why Ryman as well? There's no indication it's Ryman. He doesn't look at Ryman. If he was going phone,
Yeti,
why Ryman? That would make sense, but it could be anybody.
Exactly.
Could be Stephen, could be Philippa.
It could be, yeah.
Could be himself.
That's a good point as well. But I mean, there's no one's getting that anyway from that clue. Phone and Yeti, that someone in the room's a phony.
And there's no way that's what Clore was actually doing. He's sitting there, minutes from death, thinking, Ooh, phone, E. Phone, E. Phone, E. Oh!
Garbage.
Not having it.
Anyway, from flashback, we see that on night of the graveyard incident, after the ghost escaped and Stephen and Alison ran off, Ryman found what Surtees actually left. Plans off the dungeon.
Yeah, he then lures Stephen out with a call. We don't see if Stephen answers it, so if he doesn't, then maybe there was a missed call.
Mm-hmm.
Or I say we don't see. We do see, but I haven't written it down.
Oh, can't remember. Anyway, Ryman knocks him out before grabbing Alison, so it was him that kidnapped him.
What's his plan to get Alison? He's just going to wait until she comes looking for Stephen.
And there's CCTV everywhere. I suppose he can turn it off and delete it, but still.
It's a bit dicey, isn't it?
Yeah, because maybe there are other people in the house who are watching it live.
Yeah.
And also, once someone's died, the cops must be around here saying, oh, you've got lots of CCTV. Brilliant. Give us a copy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not working.
It turned off just in that one area.
Mm.
Anyway, he plans to get away with this. He's about to leave and says that there was an evil force in the house, but it's gone now. Obviously referring to Stephen.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if this is before or after, but Jonathan talks a lot of shit here. He mentions how connecting the whole murder to Ryman is going to be hard, and that with Alison as a witness, it may be put down to the evil forces in the house. No, the cops aren't going to say, well, yeah, that's fair enough, I suppose. That's not an explanation that's going to satisfy anyone.
No. And yeah, that is right before Ryman says there was an evil force. It was Stephen and he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get this totally not racist twist about Nina's husband being the taxi driver.
Yeah, what were we meant to think?
That Ryman was her husband. Because he was working on security at the house.
Yeah, and he's black, like Nina.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yeah, so you're making the racist... The assumption that the viewer and Jonathan are racist because they assume that black people are a couple when there's a possibility of the black person being in a couple. No.
I know.
They shouldn't have touched this. For a start, it's not a good enough twist.
No.
It's not... It's playing on...
It's an irrelevant
You're
twist.
assuming prejudice.
Yeah, but it's just a twist for the sake of that. It's not a plotline twist.
No, it doesn't affect anything. It's just like, look how racist you were.
Yeah.
I'm not racist, you are. It's one of these horrible right-wing nonsensy things where I'm not saying that Rennick's right-wing, but it's the same idea where they say, you're the racist because you assume.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it was totally uncalled for, unnecessary.
That entire thing should just have been left out.
It should have been, yeah. Anyway, Polly rightly implies that they should call the authorities. But even Wilkie's at it now. And he suggests that they take a moment to reflect before rushing to judge. No, what?
This is the same thing as Satan's Chimney, where they say, well, maybe should we cover up for them? How many crimes has Jonathan covered up?
A lot.
If that DVD box set comes out, he's going to prison for a long time.
A very long time, and rightly so. I think we mentioned before we should do it next week in the wrap-up episode. I think we should look at Jonathan's major personality, I was going to say flaws, but they're bigger than flaws.
Yeah, craters,
yeah. And see if actually Jonathan is a good guy. I have my suspicions that he's done more harm than good.
Yeah, he's one of these investigative people who applies his own judgment.
Yeah.
He's no Poirot.
He's not. He's not Columbo.
Well, absolutely. Although Columbo did that as well.
Not to the same extent. We're not going to discuss that, but no, I'm not having that.
Okay, back in the town, we've got some kids playing football with a scarecrow head, which I think leads to the Phil Jupitus one getting donated to Nina's scarecrow.
It does, yes. Back over in Demon's Roost, Alison is talking to Philippa, Polly, Jonathan, and also herself when she says she has to, or they have to accept that what she felt and knew of Stephen was all in fact a lie.
Fair enough.
She goes on to tell him that Stephen had kept her in the dark about the letter, as we've discussed, in order to suit his own needs, and that the truth about her mother and sister was that they had died from a very rare blood disease.
Yeah, Clore had chosen to write to her now because he had come to know that she might be planning a family, or assume maybe.
Yes.
Alison is sad about her mother's ordeal, talks through it a bit more, and we see that the scream from that photo was really just some kind of jaw pain.
Yeah.
Unspecified. In fact, basically nothing. Seems every other twist in this episode.
It doesn't seem like a blood disease would cause that sort of pain in your jaw. I mean, I am not a doctor. You may have guessed. But it seems like there could have been a different...
And essentially the big twist is that as a child she misunderstood the word hemoglobin for hobgoblin.
That's fair enough, I think.
That one's fine. But it's not been part of the story.
No.
That mystery was basically overlooked. It was kind of there, but to the side. Back at the Creek home, we get this...
Well, it's Nina's house, is it not?
Is it? Whatever it is, Creek's sacrificing his scarecrow's head so that Nina can complete hers once again, but it only wins second place.
Yeah, we didn't mention through this episode, but I think that Jonathan wanted his scarecrow to be quite satirical and subtle, whereas Polly kept suggesting that they overdo the cartoonish element of it to appeal to the masses, and he thinks, no, that's not what we need. And we see that he achieved second place, but was beaten by a urinating scarecrow.
It's between them because it's Nina's scarecrow with Jonathan's head.
Yeah.
Yes, a urinating scarecrow, hilarious.
Yeah.
Reminds you of the episode when all the men were peeing in their gardens to get rid of the...
Yeah, it was only a thought about that.
Let's go to one more terrible scene before we finish Jonathan Creek.
Yeah, you say terrible. I mean, like I said earlier, had this scene and this relationship and Jonathan's family history been developed organically throughout the show, I would have been happy enough with this.
Yeah.
But okay, tell us what happens.
Well, Polly's talking about these childhood worlds. This comes from nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonathan wonders what happened to these tiny notes from the pixies that his brother used to give to him.
Yeah.
He kind of gets a bit nostalgic, chucks the globe away, and as he wanders off, it opens to show that the notes were all inside this globe. He'd been saving them all. And that's quite sad because they didn't get crushed by the skip.
Yeah, no, I can understand. I'm a fairly melancholic personality, and things like there's certain things that I have went to try and find from my past that I've thrown them out. I can't find them, and I can understand that sadness.
Yeah, but this
it doesn't.
They didn't earn it.
No, exactly.
They haven't done anything to build to this. They haven't done any of the hard work that you need to get the payoff. At the end, they've just gone for we'll pull these heartstrings.
Yeah, it's like putting a puppy death in a movie, or seeing someone dying at the hospital bed. It's a very easy way to tug on these heartstrings. It's not. It's a lazy and quick way to try, but without the backstory, it's meaningless.
Yeah, no, we don't know his brother. We don't know his relationship with his brother. We don't know what's happened to his brother.
His brother could be alive for all we know.
Yeah, he could be living in the next town. Yeah, he could be in prison. Overall, the episode's fine.
It's fine.
Better than some. It's not great.
It finished slightly higher than it peaked slightly higher than some of the troughs that it has found itself in.
The worst of the Gothic episodes, but still better than a lot of the non-Gothic ones.
Yeah, I mean, watching this, you're thinking, okay, there is still room for another episode. I wouldn't say it should be wrapped, and I'm glad to see the back of it.
Yeah.
But as you said at the start, Polly reverted to type. There wasn't, the character development wasn't sustained. But on the other hand, the other extreme here is there's new character development that trying to be forced into Jonathan. Yeah. It's a little bit unbalanced in that sense. This episode, as well, I said, there's 5 different sort of mysteries in the go here. There's an awful lot going on.
I think they're trying to tie this thing of Jonathan's childhood to Alison's childhood.
Perhaps, yeah.
But they don't make any real tangible connections. There's no thread that links them. There's nothing. It's just that these things happened to them when they were children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was fine. I mean, I must admit, I'm more old school with my mysteries. I like someone being stabbed or murdered in a devilish and complicated manner. Fair enough. Cunning manner, yeah. But the whole sort of superstition, Gothic, devils and fires and all that sort of stuff. It's because with that, certainly, unless you believe in all that sort of guff, that, like Jonathan says, you have to ignore all this nonsense.
Yeah.
So you immediately look to the human element of it, and I think you can do away with all that sort of stuff and go back to some of the earlier solutions or plots.
Yeah.
Did you like the Scarecrow Festival?
No.
There's one out in Bothwell, which is started before this one.
Right.
I think local businesses got together as a means of...
There's a regular one in West Kilbride. I used to see when I drove through there. It's, I think, quite well known. They have signs up for it and stuff.
Oh, this one I'm saying in Bothwell is very, very good, and they're very impressive, actually. It's I take the kids to it every year. I think it's around about September, maybe.
Just to terrify them for the next 12 months.
Yeah, no, they enjoy it. There's ones like Spider-Man and things like that, and The Simpsons and all that nonsense. But it's good. Anyway, that's us. A little bit of trivia. We'll chat through the guest stars this week. It was first broadcast just after Christmas on the 28th of December 2016, and as you mentioned, was directed by Sandy Johnson. Ken Bones played Nathan Clore. You may have seen him in Troy, The World's End, Versailles, Medici, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Doctor Who in 2015, Atlantis, Casualty, Upstairs, Downstairs, Holby City, The Bill or Doctors, and I think he is a fairly prolific stage actor.
I still would have had Timothy Dalton do that role.
You would certainly have recognised Warwick Davis, who played the Reverend Wilkie. He was born in 1970, and I suppose you could say he's been typecast. Most of his roles are fairly similar. He has been in Willow, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Dwarfs Assemble, I think we've mentioned that before, Doctor Who, Life's Too Short, and he was also the creator of that, or co-creator, I think, with Ricky Gervais. Ray, and he starred in the Leprechaun movies. He's been at least 3 different characters in Star Wars. Has he? He was in both the most recent main movie, I think, and also in the Han Solo individual movie as different people. Okay. He is 3'6", but was only 2'11" during his appearance in The Return of the Jedi. Okay. Grew up. And he is married to another small actor, Samantha Burrows, who herself is the daughter of Haley and Peter, who are both short actors. So a long line of... A short line of... Okay. Georgie Lord played Alison Belkin. She's only got 3 credits. This and Casualty, and also, and this is the first time I've heard of it, I think it's only out this year, it's called Shakespeare and Hathaway, Private Investigators. That sounds brilliant. Right up my street. Yeah. I'm going to look out for it, see if I can get a hold of it. Eamon Elliott played Stephen Belkin, born in 1983, I think in Edinburgh. He has starred in Prometheus, The Force Awakens, Clique, The Paradise, Threesome, Lip Service, Game of Thrones, and Feel the Force. Decent resume already. It's alright. Rosalind March was Philippa, and she has been in Doctors, Holby City, New Tricks, Calendar Girls, East is East, London Bridge, The Bill, and Life Without George. One of the murderers this week was Ryman, and you may have seen him in either Agatha Raisin, Porridge, the remake that is, The Bill or Doctors. I've got 2 more for you. Patrick Tyree was played by Ryan Oliver. Born in 1975, he has been in Strike Back, Vendetta, and The Royals. He's also a stuntman. And finally, Jo Martin played Nina. She has also been in Doctors, Top Boy, Casualty, The Crouches, The Bill, Batman Begins, and Chef, with Lenny Henry, I think. Yeah, I was good series. I enjoyed that. Didn't watch it. Yeah. I've not watched it recently. I don't know if it stands up. But... Pie in the Sky. I was more of a Pie in the Sky. Same also watched that one, with Richard Griffiths. Yeah. Do you have any trivia for us? No, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the end of Tyree. Okay. Because I've had a look around the internets, this being a more recent episode, and people are not happy. I can understand why. They refer back to, I think a few folk did, to The Three Gamblers, when Jonathan was in a similar life or death situation and attacked the guy with the cards, use a non-lethal solution. Do you think they should have found a non-lethal solution in this case? Yes, if you are basing his actions on the character that has been developed over the years. Now, in real life, I don't have a problem if someone was doing that, then it's... but yeah, Jonathan should have... The character of Jonathan Creek, as you mentioned there, could have come up with a more inventive and less fatal escape. Yeah, even like closing the lid on top of him and then they could get him out later with the police. Or yeah. They could have done it a different way. I think so, yeah. Anything else? No. You may have noted a number of Scottish accents in this week's episode. I think I mentioned every one of them. This may have been due to the fact that Daemon's Roost was filmed not far from where you grew up, at Hunterston House in Ayrshire. Okay. On top of that, there was an uncredited tavern man. I think it must have been in one of the flashbacks, perhaps. He was played by Gerard Wilkie, who is a teacher at Greenwood Academy, also in Ayrshire.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I know Greenwood Academy, yeah.
Okay, he's still there as a teacher. Maybe we should get in touch. I think he's on Twitter.
Give him a call.
Okay. And as we mentioned earlier, Clore's movies were produced at Great Portland Street, which is a nod to the previous Jonathan Creek episode. And it was, in fact, the home of Hammer Horror.
Oh, there you go. That's quite good. I like that. That's possibly the best trivia of this episode.
And finally, what do we have here? Yeah, The Yeti Lives, the poster that Clore was looking at, was credited to David Wickren, obviously an anagram of Rennick.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do one final episode review.
Fine.
Okay, motive.
For what?
For Ryman's killing of Stephen.
Revenge, justice.
Clues, I'll rattle through.
Okay.
Surtees' clue that he left himself. The CCTV installation. The missing pages in the letters. The ring found on the grave. And, of course, the matches found in the dungeon.
Nina's photo.
Yeah.
Put him in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. The gotcha, I suppose, was the matches.
Yeah.
And the marriage connection.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact he was related, yeah.
Mm. And finally, next time, what do we have?
Final episode of the Jonathan Creek podcast, the wrap-up show.
Yep, we can. What we're going to do, chat about our favourite episodes, favourite scenes, favourite sidekicks.
We might go through those 7 types of locked room.
We might not.
See what we do for time. Maybe talk about what we've got coming up in the future as well.
We can do that, yes. And as discussed, I think we can have a chat about Jonathan's character.
Yes.
And perhaps
maybe
ways
do a sidekick one as well.
Could do a sidekick one, yeah. And perhaps ways that if we were bringing it back, any changes, any improvements.
Yeah, thoughts for the future of Jonathan Creek. Yeah.
Again, just to, that's a warning for David Rennick to tune in and take some notes. We'll help you out. There may be a career on TV for you if you're able to learn.
For David Rennick?
Yeah, take on board some criticism.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, that's us. Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.